Hey kids, it's about that time for a review of the Nike Zoomx Invincible Run Flyknit 2. An upper update to Nike's Zoomx Clog. Will this make the difference between the shoe being a forgiving foot favourite or an unwieldy beast? Let's find out. Thanking you for joining me today on Eddbud Running Shoe Reviews. It's always appreciated, people. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and also click the bell below for notifications when I launch the new things for you. Also give this video a thumbs up and share it with your running buddies. If you have a question you want answered or wish to offer super thanks, do so using the icon below. It really does help the channel out and keeps the torrent of shoes flowing in. I want to set the record straight with the Zoomx Invincible Run from last year. I really enjoyed the midsole and the outsole of that shoe. They were quite something else. There's no other shoe quite like it, but the upper was a bit lousy. So I'm coming at this from the perspective that the upper might be fantastic and I'll be able to enjoy that midsole and outsole combo a little bit more. Like a tasty BLT. Last year it was like the bread was a bit soggy. Weight-wise here, there's not a lot in it. This one comes in very slightly heavier than last year's model. 351 grams here, that equates to 12.4 ounces roughly. So there's a gram or two in it, not an awful lot, so I'm not going to put the shoe down for that. I think I'm beyond doing reviews where I just say that a shoe's too heavy or whatever. Running shoes these days are pretty light compared to some of the stuff from the old days, like the Nike Tailwind or something. A bit of a love-hate relationship I had with that V1 version of the shoe. Perhaps the V2 might be better. 45mm of heel stack and approximately 36mm in the forefoot here makes for a 9mm drop. And you can feel it. It feels even more than that because the shoe is just so doggone compressive. I took these out for a 10-mile run today to test them out and give you my thoughts and opinions. We will start with the upper first, which is pretty much the only thing that's changed on this version of the shoe. Upper-wise, we have a more knit-like Flyknit. So I know Mike Kafuzi is going to be really pleased about that. It does feel a little bit more like the Flyknit that we know and love, but it still isn't anything like the stuff that was on the Zoomfly Flyknit or the Vaporfly 4% Flyknit. So clearly there's about 5 different versions of Flyknit now. Well, I mean, there's different versions of Zoomx, so why not have different versions of the upper as well? As you can see, those irritating reflective strips have made a comeback, and they're on both the lateral and medial side. I did remove the ones on the medial side from the V1 because they rubbed on my big toe. I got some dreadful blisters after like a 14-mile long run or something. After I removed them, I didn't get them, so I'm pretty sure it was down to those reflective strips. I also learnt the lesson that you should never leave nail polish remover open because it evaporates away. We got some small plastic overlays on the upper just to reinforce the eyelets this time around. Now the upper material is actually less flexible, but that's a good thing here in the toe box. It means that the material is kind of staying away from the toes a little bit more. There's a bit more structure to it, and due to that it feels a little bit roomier here in the toe box, which is a good thing if you ask me. Now in their wisdom, Nike have chosen to replace the quite thick laces that we had in the V1 with some laces that appear to be from the Nike SB Dunk series. If you own a pair of those shoes, you'll know what I'm talking about. These are sort of oval-like laces, quite a bit of elasticity to them, and they're quite thick too. There is more refined padding this time on the tongue. It feels much nicer to me. I didn't have to get anywhere near as much pressure down on top of the foot to get a good lockdown. The padding around the heel and the ankle is very close to the V1. Again, it just feels a little bit more refined this time, and overall I think the shoe just looks way more aesthetically pleasing than the first version. Felt good out there today. I think if a shoe looks good, sometimes it can make you feel good. That silicone piece around the heel, that clip there, does feel a little bit more flexible. I don't know whether they've changed the material slightly. There's still quite a bit of rigidity here though around that heel counter. Overall, it was just a very, very comfortable ride on my initial run. They've switched up to a smaller swoosh on the medial side of the upper. I think they're really there just to provide a little bit of structure to the upper material itself. So on first appearance, it's quite close to the V1, but there's actually some small subtle changes that do make this a hell of a lot better for me. I haven't found the upper particularly warm either. People keep saying that certain uppers are very warm. Maybe I'm just in the wrong climate for it here in the UK, but it just felt fine today. Breathable enough. Does still feel perhaps a little bit bulky, especially considering what you've got underneath your foot, but it's certainly an improvement from the first version. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 3 for the upper after my initial run. Midsole, midsole, midsole now. Midsole wise, this is one of few Nike shoes that doesn't use a rubberized strobel board between the insole and the actual midsole material itself. Apart from the insole, you are directly on top of the Zoomx, and you can tell. This is probably to amplify the Zoomx sensation that everybody's after these days, and it does feel it's nerfed a little bit, I suppose, in the Vomero 16, because we do have some other elements there. You don't get that here in the Invincible Run 2. You know that Zoomx is there. It is incredibly squashy and compressive, but forgiving too. That means that it's not the fastest shoe in the world, because it does absorb a lot of the impact, but that's pretty much the intended use case. You see that rubberized foam layer in shoes like the Pegasus 39 and pretty much most other Nike non-racing shoes. I reckon they use it in the shoes that have air zoom units to try and protect the integrity of those units a little bit. Ride-wise, I've got to be honest, it isn't any different really to the V1. Exactly the same. Perhaps a little better, a little improved because of the upper lockdown. I have to say I love the midsole for comfort. My right hip has been quite tight recently, a little bit sore maybe. I've been doing a lot of higher paced reps and stuff, so maybe it's just coming to terms with those. But I got out today, 10 miles in these, and it almost repaired the problem. It's just gone away now, so whether I just needed a little bit of tender loving care from the Zoomx, I don't know. There is a mass of that foam here in the midfoot area and the heel. It's quite luxurious really. It's like a really big galaxy chocolate bar for the foot. Sort of going to hold your hand through those times when you perhaps have some reservations about getting out there, like I did today, and it worked a treat. What's that? Another 7 miles? You must be joking. So it could be a great shoe for running some recoveries, or perhaps if you're coming back from injury. It's lively, guys. It's very compressive. The midsole in the shoe's more lively than a Ramones concert in the late 70s. Less propulsive than the Prime X, and as such, those after a maximally cushioned package but in a lighter frame should go for the Adidas shoe. It's hard to dislike this midsole though once you get going in it, once you come to terms with just how soft it is, and I'm really glad to have it back in the rotation. I'm going to give it a 2.7 out of 3 after my initial runs for the midsole. It really is super comfortable, though it's going to be too soft and squashy for some people. I like it though. Outsole now. I have to say this shoe is one of the loudest shoes I've ever run in. It does sound a little bit like a bucket of octopuses thrown out of a 5-story flat. I really think they've included that full rubber coverage here as some sort of stabilizing element. If you think of all the other Zoomx shoes that are out there, none of them have this level of rubber on them. Even the Zagama, that trail shoe that Nike is set to launch, even that hasn't got full rubber on it, and it's a trail shoe. So just think about that for a minute. Maybe it's to improve durability and try and improve the longevity of that midsole. We know that Zoomx is prone to damage from sharp objects or debris. I mean, if you're classifying this shoe as a daily driver, some sort of recovery shoe, you know, durability is going to be paramount in your mind, especially if you're paying 165 Earth credits for it. Ow! I found the original to have great grip, very versatile in fact. You could even use it on some light trails if you wanted to. On a variety of surfaces it worked really well, especially in the rain. It kind of reminds me of the outsole of the Nike Tailwind, only they've kind of zoomed out a little bit and there's thousands of protrusions rather than just a handful. I did find the V1 wore down quite quickly in the midfoot area and on the lateral heel, but that's kind of where I wear down most daily shoes anyway, so I'm not really too worried about that. Grip was still superb. I find no reasons really why this shoe should be any different to the V1. It's the same midsole and outsole unit, so it should behave in the same way. I gave the V1 a outsole score of 2.7 out of 3 after 100 miles, so I see no reason to give this one anything lower or higher. Value now. There's no getting away from the fact this shoe is very expensive at 165 Earth credits here in the UK. I know there are a load of other max cushion shoes that are lower than that price, but I think this shoe has some significant advantages to it that those don't have. It makes mincemeat of the on-running Cloud Monster. That thing just feels firm compared to this one. There's nowhere near as much compression in that shoe. It is softer than the Energy X from Reebok and a lot cheaper than the king of cushion, the Adidas Adizero Prime X. Does the Asics Nova Blast 2 do the same thing at a slightly cheaper price? Well, I'd suggest that isn't as compressive or forgiving, certainly the next day, as this shoe. You know, this thing's no race shoe, but it's not really designed to be used as one. You could probably wear it for a marathon or something, but I don't really feel that that's the intended use case. I know loads of people picked up the V1 when it was discounted and they're really enjoying it and they got loads and loads of miles into it. So I would suggest at this point, if you can find a good deal on the V1 and the upper works for you, go for it. But if you can get a discount on these in some way, I feel that the upper on the V2 has some significant advantages and improvements. If you've got miles left in the V1, use those up and enjoy it, and then perhaps pick one of these up down the line. With the improved upper though, I feel the shoes are a little bit better in terms of value. I'm going to give it a 2.4 out of 3 after my initial runs for value. So if I've totaled the scores up correctly, that gives us 10.3 out of 12 for the Nike Zoomx Invincible Run Flyknit 2. I'm running a poll up on the community section of the site right now. Let me know whether you're going to pick these up, maybe get some down the line, or they're a definite nay. Gotta be honest, I'm really enjoying having these back in the rotation. There is something quite special about the midsole here, and I'm glad that they've improved the upper so I can get a bit more out of it this time. Thanks, Nike. Musical interlude time. I've been really digging material from Ice Cube recently. I think as it's got warmer, it's helping me to feel a little cooler. Released back in 1992, I love the track It Was a Good Day. The guitar riff on this one's just fantastic. It really reminds you of those sort of summer grooves. You can get into the Nissan Micra, crank this one up, and it just works. I really love the flow and delivery of the lyrics on this one from Ice Cube. It's so laid back, so on point. It's got quite a warm kind of tone as well, which is nice. Some rappers have quite a harsh sort of sound, and it really isn't pleasant to listen to, but his warm tone fits with the drums and that guitar backing. As with any Ice Cube track, you should be aware that there are some explicit lyrics there, so viewer discretion is advised. Fantastic track though from Ice Cube. It was a good day. Been a very good day today, in fact. Very, very good. Thanks for joining me on the show today, guys. Always appreciated. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications when I launch the new videos for you. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and also share it with your running buddies. And you can hit me with a super thanks as well if you've got a specific question you need answering. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you